and same time and different speakers, different content. The format keeps getting better. And if you look on the screen, you'll see that the summits are held every month on the third Thursday. They are 3 hours long, and we keep them moving fast. And so you have the opportunity to connect with a lot of different people. We have 5 speakers that give 15-minute presentations, and they also share 20 PowerPoint slides during their 15-minute presentation. The format is inspired by 2 types of presentations: TED Talks, which are 18 minutes long. We give 15 minutes instead, which is the length of time that fits with LinkedIn's algorithm for showing videos that are optimized. So 15 minutes is what LinkedIn likes, and that's the length of time you'll hear each of the 5 speakers. We're also inspired by Pecha-Kucha, which is a Japanese word for chit chat, and Pecha-Kucha presentations involve using 20 PowerPoint slides in a short amount of time. We give you more time with our format. We've had huge attendance every month, and it gets better, and we keep growing, and we have more attendance and more inspiration. And today we have a special AI speaker showcase that presents for 45 minutes, and you're in for a real treat. Never before seen footage of the president of OpenAI and the co-inventor of ChatGPT. And I was recently with him at an event where we captured some great inspiration for you. And that's all at the end. So we've got a great lineup of these different speakers. Over 17,000 people attending according to LinkedIn, and we've got people following us on Zoom and following us on YouTube as well for the overflow. So people get a chance to connect up with each other. And I'm going to have someone put in the chat a link right now to a group on LinkedIn with 1 million members. Can, who is the administrator for the Artificial Intelligence Innovators.org community. We have over 1 million people, and Can's going to put in the chat a link to that. What I encourage that you do is post after joining the Artificial Intelligence Innovators .org group, post on it, and let Pan know of your posts, and we can like them and give them extra visibility. And so whatever you learn today, feel welcome to share in our 1 million member network that keeps growing. And LinkedIn actually gave us an award for being one of the most active groups on LinkedIn, and we are the largest AI and deep learning group on LinkedIn, and we keep growing thanks to people like you, and thanks to sponsors. This event is sponsored by Next Gen AI Solutions Group. Their website is easy to find, nextgenai.io. And if you visit their website, you'll see the different divisions that they have, and they are people who support what we do by bringing innovative solutions in the artificial intelligence space. So they're one of our sponsors. We have another wonderful sponsor, and some organizations help translate the world to bring communication and insight to people. And so Online Interpreters Worldwide is producing today's event, and has a lot of people and products that are engines behind running this. So I also invite you to think about who's going to talk today. So did something very interesting, and we've got record attendance today. And one reason why that was I decided to do a press release and have AI write the press release. And so I'm going to put one link in the chat right now to the press release that went out. Since we had such a wide variety of speakers who represent some very wonderful organizations, I thought I'd go ahead and share with you what AI had to say, and they're going to introduce our lineup of our speakers. So let's see if I can go to the large screen for all of you to see. And here we have what AI wrote about the summit that you are all attending today. It says, connect with our esteemed speakers on LinkedIn and delve deeper into their expertise. So our first speaker is Mesa Pena of Microsoft, and the title of her presentation is The Art of Possible. Now, I had a copy of Mesa's slides, and had the artificial intelligence robot named Alex Tremblay give us a quote, and here's what we had to say about Mesa's presentations. Mesa's talk beautifully intertwined the boundaries of AI capabilities with human creativity. It was both engaging and thought-provoking. Well, thank you, Alex, for sharing that. And rather than go ahead and continue to introduce all the people at the same time, I'm going to go ahead and move right into having our first speaker from Microsoft introduce herself and share with us 15 minutes of inspiration. And then we'll come back to this press release to find out what AI had to say about Matt Lewis. Hello, Mesa.
Hello, how are you? Can you hear me well?
Perfect.
Okay,
Thank you for joining us. You're in Florida, right?
I'm in Florida. Thanks for inviting me. Still like put your screen somehow that I can see you. Okay. Can you see my screen?
I cannot see your screen.
You need to press the green button on Zoom and share your screen.
Yeah, I did that, but then here we go.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. So my name is Maísa Penha. I live in Florida now, but I'm Brazilian. And I work in Microsoft as a principal technical program manager right now, but I've been working with customer implementations on artificial intelligence for more than 8 years. I started this journey in IBM working with Watson. And then I moved to Microsoft where I met the Microsoft suite of AI services. So I'm here today to talk a little bit about my latest experiences with customer engagements and hope you enjoy it. So first of all, I would talk a little bit about after ChatGPT and the text-based ChatGPT that we know, what customers are looking for right now. What would be the next? So we are talking a lot about reasoning over images, and it's not just about see an image and the model would be able to recognize what is inside this image, but actually reasoning about it. On this example, for example, to be like more concrete, you can ask and send this picture and ask, can you explain this meme? And then it says that it's a joke that combines two unrelated things, pictures of the Earth from space and chicken nuggets. And in the end, it says as well, the humor in this meme comes from an expected position of the text and the image. So it's more not only about recognize that this is a chicken nuggets, but actually there is humor here and reasoning about it. Other example on images as well and text together is this handwritten like draft of a website, and then you can like automatically have the website like done for you. And other example of that is when you have a photo of your refrigerator with what you have there, and you ask, what are the meals I can do with that? And then the model can answer you based on what they have in the refrigerator. So that is like what would be the next step, and that will be actually feasible soon for everybody. What Microsoft has to offer on AI. So Microsoft has a suite of Azure services on AI, like you can see vision, speech, language, decision, Azure machine learning. You have some products on top of that that works with Azure OpenAI, like cognitive search and so on. So all of those services are inside Azure platform, as well as Azure OpenAI. So I'm going to focus on Azure OpenAI now, but it's good to know, because almost like I would say now all the scenarios I work with, there is an integration with other kind of AI service. Azure OpenAI started in Microsoft because the partnership with OpenAI. I think this partnership started around 2016 for many reasons. And other than like have this partnership on creating models, I think the important thing and message that I'd like to give you here is that all the models you see that OpenAI launch, what we have in Azure OpenAI are the same models. So what we have is we hosted inside Azure, so you can have all the benefits of the cloud platform as well, including connection with other like services inside. You have the compliance, you have the security components as well. And we have also responsible AI, which is a solution on top of the APIs that also gives you a possibility to filter the content that you are like handling with. Okay, a little bit of history on AI. Artificial intelligence started to be
Hi
studied
everyone.
in 56.
I'm sorry I won't be able to be with you live, so I have recorded this presentation in order to
Can you hear this
really
sound?
highlight you what you need to take into consideration when you want.
Here we go.
Sorry, that's the Australian that is anxious to get on.
No problem. I thought it was me somehow. Okay, what's that? Okay, so let me continue here. So, so the study of artificial intelligence started on 56. Then it like evolved as machine learning, subset of that, and then deep learning with a technique of machine learning, right? And now we have generative AI, which is exactly what the word says. I'm going to generate text or vision or like video images. And there are two classifications inside generative AI. Generative AI, which is text, which like they create content based on their learnings, and as well as descriptive AI, that is how they can better recognize actually vision and speech, for example. But they are all inside generative AI. And what is generative AI? It's one of the examples is large language models, and they are based on foundation models. And foundation models is, you can like relate it as a huge transformer model that you train with a lot of text, images, speech, and structured data, and you can perform a lot of tasks. A little bit different on what we had before on machine learning models, where you train a machine learning model for a specific task, for classification, for sentiment analysis. Now you can have the foundation model work for you and accelerate your process for your solution. What are the services available right now on Azure OpenAI is GPT-4, GPT 3.5 Turbo. Both of them you can have chat conversations depending on what model you'd prefer to use. I'm going to talk about that later. And DALL-E, which is to create images. So LLMs and like large language models brought a concept of prompt engineering, which was like something very different in the field of AI, right? So it's not only science, I would say, it's kind of art and kind of persistence as well. And it is like a text that you send it out to LLM that could have like instructions, examples, and the task you want them to perform, and then it's going to return a completion. And what is the way people works with prompts, right? We have like a cycle. So first of all, you wanted to see what it's possible with that. So you start with ideation. And then you have what we call zero shot prompt. When you don't have an example, you're just ideating and see what the LLM is capable of. The second one is you start to experiment, and then you give some examples to your prompt. So it would be more accurate when it returns to you the answer, because he knows more what you are looking for based on the examples you are giving to them. And that we call few shot. You can give like 3 or 5 examples. And then we have fine-tuning. Fine-tuning, it's a little bit different. Fine-tuning is when you provide a lot of examples. I'm saying like between 1,000 to 2,000 when you have the prompt and you have the expected answer, expected completion, and you fine-tune your model. So you updated the weights and the bias of your model. When people do that, when you have a business rule or some news that the LLM doesn't have to answer to you, because LLM would not know your own business rules, so you needed to inform them. So fine-tuning is one of that. However, there is a third technique that I'm going to talk about it. That is the RAG pattern, which is mostly like widely used for many of the reasons here as well. So between prompt engineering, fine-tuning, and RAG, we call that model adaptation. And this is what we have seen customer doing a lot. So they started on helping their solution be more accurate or reduce latency with prompt engineering. And that includes a lot of techniques that you can use to improve that. I would say we helped a lot of customers, and we could like improve latency or accuracy 40%. It's a matter, like I said, patient, persistent, and of course, know a little bit of the techniques you have in hand. One of them, like some of them could be, you can include instructions to the prompt, to the LLM, to do not make up stuff. You can restrict the output that you are looking for as well. You can add chain of thought. Chain of thought is when you put in your prompt instructions step by step how the LLM would solve a problem, for example. You can repeat as many times as you want, and you can position the most important one in the end. So you have a bunch of techniques that you can find online. You can find in different articles. Here is some guidance we have put in place for some customers, like give clear instructions, split complex tasks into simpler subtasks, structure the instruction to keep the model on task, and so on. So after you explore a lot, like prompt engineering, and it's still not giving you the accuracy, or you are not getting the result you are expecting to, you should then start to consider either fine-tuning or RAG. And RAG is retrieval augmented generation here. It's a new pattern. And what it does is you have your data, and you embedding using Azure OpenAI embeddings, and you embedding your data, which is going to translate your data in an array of numbers. And then you save that in a vector database. When your user asks you a question, this question needs to be embedding as well using the same API. And then you get the number representing your query. And then you go to the vector database and you search for the same vector numbers there. And then it's going to retrieve you how many documents you want. So let's say you want the 5 top documents. So those documents you can include in your prompt, and then you can ask LLM to answer the question. So this is also a way to you to provide your business rules, for example, to LLM, but you don't need to fine-tuning. You add that in prompt. So this is why we call retrieval, because it's retrieving from a search machine. You augment it, you are putting here in the prompt, and then you generate the answer for the user. That's the mostly scenario that I'm seeing nowadays, customer using Fine-tuning is a good option too, but you need to consider you need to consider costs, time, and how you're going to maintain both solutions. Some other top cases we are working on are related to code generation, report summarization, call analytics, and call summarization are a lot as well, like call center solutions, looking for how can I summarize my insights or my calls, what I can have as an insight from those calls, and so on. So a bunch of use cases that you can think about it, where you can apply Azure OpenAI. And nowadays, so we had customers experimenting for like a couple of months and doing POCs and like trying to focus on their business issues and business problems. And now they are in time for, okay, I have this POC, I like it, I already have like accuracy and the latency I want to, how can I go to production? So then it started to worry about other things. That is, how can I keep a version, like how can I version my prompts, because I don't want it to change. I just wanted to try a new prompt and compare them. So Microsoft recently launched a tool for that that's called Prompt Flow. And it has been evolved a lot along the weeks, I would say, where you can have and you can version like all the flow of your model. So you can like compare as well, like model's performance. One thing that is very common is customers comparing and trying to answer the question, should I use 3.5 or should I use 4? So those kinds of comparisons would be very like feasible to do with tools like that. So this is kind of the flow. So you create your flow, you run your flow, evaluate your metrics as well. You can see accuracy, you can see other metrics that you want over your model. And then if you are satisfied, you just put in like move the flow for deployment. If not, you can iterate and iterate until you get what you want. So my time is going up, and thank you so much. I hope you liked my presentation. I hope I could share a little bit from the customer engagements and the challenge that we are facing right now. Thank you so much.
And thank you, May. You covered a lot of territory in just 15 minutes. The PowerPoint design people at Microsoft would be very proud of you. Your score on the analysis of the slides that you prepared for people was real high and so forth. And I'm going to have Tan put in the chat a link for all of you so that you can actually go to one page on LinkedIn, and it has a link to download the PDF of all 20 PowerPoint slides from each of the speakers from the summit. And so if you liked what you heard and saw, you'll truly like what you are able to learn by taking a deeper dive into the content that they share with you as well. So let's go back to my matter of fact, I'm putting in the chat a link to the news release that went out yesterday, written by AI. And again, I did this for your benefit and also to see if it would generate some interest, and it certainly did, and so forth. So as we take a look at the next speaker on our agenda of 6 speakers for the afternoon, we go into the healthcare world, to New York City. We go to Matt Lewis of Inizio Medical, and look at his title: Augmented Generative Intelligence. What's the hardest thing? I love that question. And so he's our second speaker. And what did the artificial intelligence testimonial by Dr. Lila Patel, an AI researcher, say about the slides that Matt has prepared? And it said, Lewis masterfully navigated the complexities of generative intelligence, presenting challenging concepts in an accessible manner. Wow. I wish I could read that at the end of when you're done, Matt, but I am done with my introduction to you that was augmented by AI, and you're going to talk about augmented thinking. So welcome, Matt. I know it's been a busy day for you, that I think this is the third presentation you've done in New York today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I almost wish that I could earn such accolades without actually having to present the slides. But the real value in these conversations is being able to share and to connect and to learn and to grow and hopefully to make an impact. So thank you, Gerald, and thank you to the audience for being here and spending a bit of your time with us all. I think we hopefully can learn and grow together. So hopefully my slides are appearing now for everyone to see. Are they on the screen? Can people give me a thumbs up? I see any.
They sure are.
All right, great, cool. All right, so yeah, I'm going to chat a little bit in the time we have together about this idea of augmented intelligence, which generative makes possible. I think the generative is really amazing and brilliant and so robust and really kind of ushers into the world a reality that has been talked about for a long time, this concept of augmented intelligence. And it really is something that is now feasible in a way that has never really been seen before. So we'll talk a little bit about why that matters and how it really is meaningful for us as people and as humans really in the world, and especially within life sciences where this is really critical. Just a couple disclosures. Inizio is my firm. I am a partner here. I have equity interest in the firm. I'm a shareholder in a couple other firms that I advise on the side. My comments that I'm going to share in the next 14 minutes are mine and mine alone. They've not been reviewed by anyone, so they really just reflect my narrative and my viewpoint, if you will, and don't hold me accountable for anything other than what I say and my own opinions. That they've been reviewed by my boss or by anyone else, but they reflect hopefully a sense of the world and where we're going. So just my role, as Gerald said, is Global Chief Artificial Augmented Intelligence Officer. I know it's a mouthful. When people ask me what I do, I say I'm head of AI. It's kind of where we've been, which is artificial intelligence, and where we're going, which is augmented intelligence. Inizio is life sciences' largest partner for communications and consulting. We help bring molecules to market, medical devices, therapeutics, digital therapeutics, anything that really helps improve people's health. That's where we fit all the major pharmaceutical companies, biotech, medical device, digital therapeutics. We're their largest partner. So we help interpret science and help clinicians, stakeholders, payers, patients understand what meaning comes from that so they can improve their health and improve outcomes in their life. So a little bit about augmented intelligence. Gartner, I know some of you in the audience maybe worked at Gartner at one point or still work there today. Gartner defined augmented intelligence back in 2015. It's not our definition, it's theirs. They defined it as a partnership-oriented kind of design pattern, if you will, a human-centered partnership model, where people and AI work together to enhance cognitive performance, including learning, decision-making, and new experience. The way I think about augmented intelligence is it's really kind of like the human is like the alpha and the omega in AI being augmented intelligence, not artificial intelligence. You can't have augmented intelligence without the human. The human starts the process, they're there throughout the process, and they're there when the final deliverable is consumed, utilized, and affects hopefully improving their life. The human is central to everything in augmented intelligence. But partnering with humans is quite difficult, actually, in the real world. All the things that were shared before by Maisa are completely true. What is possible in the generative stack, in partnership with Microsoft, we're a Microsoft partner, many others are as well, or perhaps you work with another organization, maybe Google or Amazon or Baidu. There are so many possibilities that exist today that did not exist 12, 18, 24 months ago. There's so much complexity and nuance and considerations in prompt tuning, fine tuning, building models, deploying them, et cetera, all that complexity is totally valid and real. But the true challenges that exist are not so much technological anymore. They really are human considerations. And in life sciences, the human considerations are many and varied and often and multiple and really need to be considered, because partnership is what makes augmented intelligence sing. You have to consider things like, do you have the right data? Is it relevant? Is it current? Is it accessible? Can you purchase it? Is it something that you can utilize? And does it drift? Does it decay? Is it resilient? And these things matter when you're thinking about the models that are relevant, and do they matter for the people you're trying to serve? people's mindset as they approach the challenges at hand matters a lot. We'll talk a little bit about that in the slides to come. And it, people's intelligence matters a lot as well. It's not just, are they book smart? Did they go to a good school? Or are they considered kind of relevant in their field? But how they actually think about the information that's being consumed and how they apply it both in a near and a far perspective matters tremendously as we stand up these models beyond the POC stage that Maisa was talking about, but actually get implemented in the enterprise and beyond when they're scalable and consistent. We really need to think about what that intelligence looks like. And then in life sciences and in many other regulated industries, there's a deep consideration for subject matter experts about what role they play as models and generative becomes more consistent and persistent as well. So data, first of all, it's not what it used to be. You think back 3 generations ago, say in the 1950s, the average doctor in the US would interact with maybe 1 new person in their life every day. Now in 2021, 2022, it's about 5 people a day, most of those coming from social media. Also, back in 1951, the average physician, if they graduated medical school in 1951, could expect to go their entire career and have that corpus, all the content for medical knowledge, double in that 40 years. Now, the average medical corpus doubles every 40 days. So it's just not possible for the average clinician to know everything, either in their specialty or in the space at large, not just in the course of their lifetime, but literally in the course of a quarter. During COVID, when we were supporting companies like Moderna and Pfizer and Gilead from Remdesivir, the entire medical knowledge for COVID was exploding. Every week, there were 10,000 new scientific articles coming into the environment that people had to become cognizant of and then make decisions off of in a very rapid period. If they didn't do it, the vaccines that are coursing through many of our bloodstreams couldn't exist. So the way in which we process information is a completely different environment than it was 3 generations ago. We can't memorize everything. We can't be expected to know what our forebears knew. And we shouldn't kind of expect that moving forward, the models can't help us extend that cognitive performance in some way. Also, the way we think about intelligence is now less a consideration of IQ or kind of what's smart or how we respond, and more of a kind of multiple intelligences. Like sometimes it's about thinking about contextual intelligence, what's relevant for the situation. Sometimes it's about thinking about how do we use experiences we had that are relevant before that might be useful now. Sometimes it's more about practical intelligence, about knowing kind of what works in what situation and how to move it forward. And you have to be able to flex and be adaptable and be resilient and agile and understand what matters in what situation so that it can be useful in the given situation that is being assigned. And that's really up to the individual. It is also a truism that, we are all humans. We're all people. Everyone on this phone, I think, is probably a human, unless, there's some robots sneaking around. But you can take the humans out of the cave. This is not so far along for us that we weren't still in caves. These are all Mid-Journey produced images, by the way. But the human in the cave on the far left is not so far removed from the human in the middle that's in the big enterprise. They might have a cell phone or an iPad or a desktop or a laptop computer, but they're still essentially a human. And then on the far right, in a regulated enterprise like life sciences or fintech or finance or healthcare, they have multiple systems, they have processes, they have guidelines, they have compliance, they have expectations, but they still have essentially a human brain. And our human brains had way longer to evolve in the situation on the left than they've had on the situation on the right in big business. And as a result, there's this kind of default mindset that all of us as humans have wired into us, into our brains hundreds of thousands of years ago. And the default mindset is one of fear and scarcity. We grew up thinking that we weren't going to get a lot for our families, our tribes, and that we weren't going to have a lot to kind of go around, if you will. So we grew up thinking that that's what we should expect. So in order to think about generative, which kind of opens the floodgates to every possible consideration, whether it's copy or content or creative or coding or anything, those are not things that most people are used to or comfortable with. So we have to really think not just about what the models can do. Yeah, those are great. That's wonderful. But we also have to think about how do we change our mindsets? How do we get used to abundance? How do we think about changing the way we work and how we incentivize how we work so that we can do more with less? No, that's not the case anymore. Now we can do more with more. And when we do more with more, how does it change our business model? How do we change the time we work so we're more efficient, but we actually enjoy the work and it affects society? Those are things that are happening now. It also is quite relevant in the life sciences space that you can't really stand up a model, any model, without having a subject matter expert. And the people that are subject matter experts in our world typically have doctoral degrees, PharmDs, PhDs, MDs. They are quite knowledgeable in a specific field, maybe cancer, maybe a rare disease, maybe neuropsychiatric spaces, if you will. They have many years of experience. They've done research, they've published, they've taught, they have a wealth and a breadth and a depth of understanding of a space. And they are natural complements, partners, if you will, to generative models and to other situations, other data models that can help really kind of bring out the robustness and the richness of what's possible. Trying to kind of just throw something over the fence and hope that it'll work and that they'll be able to figure out how to use it is not helpful. So most of the considerations from an AI perspective tend to kind of focus in on these kind of vertical applications within life sciences, starting with text and code, then image, then video, then audio, then coding, and the rest, like we're talking about previously. I would say in life sciences, in augmented intelligence, the hardest thing really is focusing, centering on these human solutions where we emphasize the right intelligence with the right data, relying on the right expertise in the right mindset, growth-oriented, solutions-oriented, where the focus is on uplifting, raising up cognitive performance and decision-making in order, in our case, to improve clinical outcomes for doctors and patients. That is an extremely hard challenge. That is our focus. So just a little bit about how we got here and where we're going. So in the old world, the first, say, 20-ish years of my career in life sciences, when organizations wanted to communicate to stakeholders, they would tend to publish things in journals, look at clinical study reports, think about what they can access, the data that they could kind of retrieve, if you will, and then what should be said about those things, and then get into a room, talk about what they should say, and it would look something like this. Someone would almost kind of say, you know, if you want a lexicon around this particular molecule or substance, maybe you want a J, or you want to say this word, and people would talk about it, and it'd be a little bit subjective, qualitative, some shouting perhaps, and they'd adopt a particular stance around what should actually be offered into the scientific and technical community. Now it's much more of an artificial intelligence, evidence-based approach, leveraging, in this case, natural language processing, where we can ingest a full corpus of an entire scientific therapeutic area, maybe 10,000 plus papers, posters, and preprints, where we can build an ontology or a curated vocabulary for a project, including all the key mesh terms, the concepts, all the entities, all the things that matter for that particular audience. And then our trained subject matter experts, our PhDs, our PharmDs, our MDs, our strategists evaluate the competitive and contextual considerations and produce some type of dynamic heat map or interactive deliverable so folks can figure out what can action and how it goes forward. So it improves consistency, it improves strategic implementation, and better outcomes result. Similarly, everyone's probably done some form of either scientific or technical or competitive intelligence in their lives. You know, you go to a big conference, you see posters on the walls, you go to sessions where people present, folks like us, if you will, and then you try to remember what you heard so it applies back to what you do on the job. This is like the traditional model across all conferences. In the new world, though, the modern world, subject matter experts are thought partners to generative AI, where you can augment the possible. So you essentially use, again, an ontology-driven machine learning, deep learning, NLP, generative approach to ingest the full corpus of every possible asset out in the world, voice of customer assets, market research, consulting, competitive intelligence, everything out there in the world from a medical, technical, clinical trial world, and then support that in terms of on-demand activities that folks can ingest and review to be able to make decisions that actually support the business moving forward. This particular implementation of it won an award with our group about a month ago with AstraZeneca, where we were able to kind of speed time to decision in oncology. Similarly, when teams are trying to support clinical trials, you go out and talk to a number of investigators about the things they're finding meaningful in the study itself. And typically, you would literally capture this information in an Excel spreadsheet or like in a Google Doc. And it would all be listed exactly like this. This is an actual example of one that was captured a number of years ago, where you say, oh, you know, the doctor is stating that, you know, a third of the patients with leukemia may be dose reduced due to X or Y. There's some toxicity, or there's an issue with insurance, or they can't get a prior authorization, whatever it might be. And then a human would have to go in and try to figure out, is this like a real insight, or is this just something that's interesting? And you could spend hours and hours just going through every one of these little line items to figure out, is this something meaningful for the business, or is it just maybe an opportunity for training for the individual? Now there is an opportunity with generative to both on the front end of the feedback loop, work with subject matter experts to figure out what really is meaningful, and then bake into a platform an ingestion process that identifies a priori what actually matters to the business. So we ask better questions. And then on the back end, we're actually interacting with customers, that being researchers, investigators, payers, other stakeholders, that when that insight comes forward, we can refine scientific communication and content so it speeds time to outcomes and overall improves decision-making. So again, augmented intelligence in life sciences is complex. It's complex because the models and their capability, our robustness has improved, but it's also complex because human partnership is not an easy thing. We are complex beings, and there's a complexity that matches the complexity of the models. However, if we approach it from a perspective of applying the right data with the right mindset, with the right intelligence, and the right expertise, then hopefully that partnership is one that's aligned towards improved outcomes. And sometimes I think if the hardest thing is achieved, it's also the right thing. So the hardest thing and the right thing can be the same. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate what you shared and the amount of thinking that went into each of the PowerPoint slides that you shared is astronomical. So there's a lot for people to learn. And again, I encourage that you download the PDF of Matt's PowerPoint slides. And as some of you have been to the news screen, there's one page that we've been referring to, which is a list of speakers. And the speakers were organized and curated by a team of people that we use to evaluate potential speakers for each of our events. So some of those people are TED coaches and TED event producers, and we have curated a very special order where we've reached out to people from around the globe and had people get up in the wee hours of the morning to meet with me and to join us and to talk about what we might be able to share. And what I'm showing on the screen right now is our next speaker, Dr. Nassim Belbali of Empathic AI. You'll gather from his talk that he's going to help you understand decision-making, deploying generative AI for customer support and CX. So he's going to share some of his academic perspectives because he's a professor as well. And what did the AI CX specialist named Sean Matthews say about Dr. Nassim Belbali's presentation? He said, Dr. Belbali's insights into AI-driven customer experiences are invaluable. This is the future of customer interaction. So he's pretty enthusiastic. So with that, I'm enthusiastic about having someone join us from his studio where he recorded some special messages that stayed within our 15-minute time frame. So here we go, Dr. Nassim. Enjoy.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I won't be able to be with you live, so I have recorded this presentation in order to really highlight you what are the things that you need to take into consideration when you want to deploy generative AI. And I'm going to show you an example of customer support and customer experience assistant that we have deployed at Empathic AI, and you can see how we have used the generative AI in our case. Just to give you a little bit highlight about who I am Dr. Nassim Belbali. I am the co-founder and CTO of Empathetic AI. I have been working in higher education. I was a professor, and then I been working also more than 20 years on algorithm on the customer innovation area, where we try to understand, predict, and forecast the customer behavior, and in order to respond to the needs. So I've been working on the area of AI for many years now, and my objective really is to use that experiences and expertise that I have developed and apply it for Empathetic AI, and more specifically for generative AI, where we are one of our products. Our product is to deploy customer support assistants. In order to understand what generative AI is, we need first to define artificial intelligence, which is a bunch of algorithms that we train in order to fulfill and replace human tasks and activities. And within AI, we have two subfields, machine learning and deep learning. And the difference between them is that machine learning, there is a human intervention in the way that the algorithm is going to be trained. We put specific parameters, settings, and we use labeled data. So we are going really to direct the kind of output that you would like to have. Concerning deep learning, we are more in an unsupervised way, which means that we can give them only raw data and it learn on its own. We can also put some parameters, but at the end, the objective using deep learning is to have really generative AI, which means we are creating original content from that. We have four main categories of generative AI. Empathic AI is mainly focusing on text, and I'm going to show you later on an example on how we do it for our customer support assistant. You have other companies that are mainly focusing on images, audio, and video. And today there is really a hot topic between screenwriters and the Hollywood studio and also the actors on the way that artificial intelligence and generative AI will be used in order to replace their image, physical image, and also their voice in order to create new movies without even using them. So this is really something important that really relate to ethics, but we'll come back to that later. The way that we can train generative AI, we can follow in fact two different paths. The first one is the supervised learning, when you can use your data to train your algorithm, and then you can have different kind of output, the predicted and the expected, and then you are going to work on the delta, and it will give you an error, and you try to minimize the error at the maximum. So in order to reach the specific threshold that you have, that will say, and so we can conclude that your model is accurate and efficient and stable. Then you have the unsupervised learning, when you just put raw data and the model is learning on its own and is generating result, and through the time is going to reach specific threshold that you need. In fact, for us in Empathetic AI, for the deployment of the customer support assistant, what we do is that it is in the beginning, the development phase, there is going back and forth between unsupervised learning and supervised till we get a model that is stable. Then when we need to deploy it to the clients, then we only really focus on the supervised one, because we create an output, there is an interaction, we grab the new data, we include it in our knowledge base, we retrain the model, but within a setting that is really stable. And then we make some updates, and we make some testing throughout the year, and normally once a year we redo the whole process again. So the way that decision makers or managers that decide to invest in generative AI, they need to take in consideration 6 main factors. We have 3 of them here. We have safety. That means that you need to take in consideration the different norms put in place, so you're not hurting your employee or your client. It don't have to be harmful. Then you have the privacy, very important. Your data don't have to go in a black box and you don't know exactly where is it going. The only solution and the only way of doing it is to deploying, like we do, the solution within your IT architecture. And then you have ethics, where you need to be able to evaluate the risk and to be sure that you're not impacting negatively the different stakeholders. The second categories of factor that you need to take into consideration when you want to invest in generative AI are the budget. You are not going to find a solution that will fulfill and your personalized needs and customize one on a budget of $10 or $20 a month, or $100 a month, or even thousands a month. That's not possible today. Perhaps in 10 years, 5 years, 10 years perhaps, but today it's not possible. We are more talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars to have that generative AI solution that really suits your need. The other thing is that this solution have to really assist your staff, make their life better, not to really create them more problems. So they need also to be trained in order to use it. So it will decrease the time that they spend on the daily routine and daily task, and be free them to do other added value task. And then there is also, of course, the risk, and the risk you always have to mitigate it while you're taking that kind of decision, because it have an impact, and the objective for you is to have really a more positive impact than a negative one. So I thought I will share with you our experience with the development and deployment of generative AI solution. At Empathetic AI, we have developed a customer support assistant, and I think to show you exactly how does it work and how we have done it, it will help you better understand exactly how generative AI can be used, and in this specific use case. For us, it's very important to focus on the type of data that we feed to our proprietary algorithm. Mainly we use conversation, process document, and commercial documents. We put them together, we reorganize them, we build ontologies upon them, just to fulfill the specific output that the client wants. And this is what really makes the difference between us and the one that use large language model. It's very difficult for them at the end of the day to really give the same result, because we customize the solution to your need, where they go from general and they try to go to very specific, when the model has not been built to be very specific. We have a very straightforward process where we have deployed our generative AI solution. Today it is hosted using AWS, but it can be Google Cloud Platform or Azure. It is not a problem. The way that it works, we have a client asking a question. Okay, this question is going to be recognized through natural language processing, the NLP, and it will understand the intent. And if it's rule-based, it's going to go to the knowledge base. That means we already have a question like, hi, how are you doing? And it's going to give you a response. If it's not there, it's going to go to the trained model that you have developed, and then you will ask him the question, and the question is, and the response is going to be generated to the client. So you see, easy process, straightforward one. So if you are a company that have more than 100,000 conversations of your customer support, and then you have your own processes, we can build your own private LMM. You are going to use our algorithm, your data, and you are going to be able to develop your own customized large language model that will help you to respond better to the first, second, or third tier of questioning that your client have. But in the case, if you have a small size of data, and we cannot build your own private LMM, but we can build on existing LMM. That means we are going to use pre-trained LMM, choose the best that will fulfill your objective, and then we are going to include your data. You're going to embed, in fact, your data, fine-tune him till we get the best output that you can have with the data that we have been given. So here, just to show you a little bit the ecosystem of large language model, you have hundreds of them. Some of them are very powerful, doing specific tasks or for specific environments, specific domains. So for us, we'll try to find you the best one till we develop our own LMM, which is on construction. This time I will have the one that will be very specific for customer support, and then we are going to use it for everybody that have a small data. So the way that at Empathetic AI we are organizing ourselves for what is the process that we are using in order to get from your data to the final product is that we are sharing with just your data, we clean it, we make specific analysis, we organize the data using ontology so we can train better, and it will be easy for retrieval and generation of data later on. And the way that we're going to train it, or we're going to embed it in a existing LMM, we're going to develop a specific or private LMM, and then we're going to make some fine tuning till we get to the result that you want, which will be a customer support assistant that will be able to interact with your client and solve the second to third tier of problem that the call centers are dealing with. So our roadmap is, if you don't have data, we can support you to create and collect data so you can be ready for the second phase where you have some data. We can embed your data into predefined, pre-trained, LMM, and then we can train it, fine tune it, and then the data that will be created will be included again till we have enough data so you can really develop your own private LMM and customize one, and then we are going to deploy it through your prompt, which is really the place where your client can interact with totally with the algorithm. So our approach have mainly two main phases. The first one is research and prototyping. When we consult, we gather the data, we prepare the data in order to develop the prototype. They're going to share with the client, and there will be what you call solution shaping for 2-3 weeks back and forward till the client agree about the solution that we're going to propose him and the quality of the solution. Then we go through the deployment phase and implementation till we get the feedback and review. And then we are proposing also what we call automated machine learning, which help to automate all the gathering of the data, the pre-processing, and then the training again. So the algorithm is going to improve better and responding better to the queries of the clients. So the process can take between 3 to 4 months, and we propose maintenance every 3 months to see if everything is going okay and what I think that we need to change. And once a year we really go through the whole process and the whole training, and we evaluate our algorithm, how is reacting, how is better, what are the things that we can do and improve. Here we are showcasing you our customer support assistant that we have built from data from Apple Support. And you can see on the first slide, we are mainly using what we call rule-based algorithm. This is what exists. Give me your name, give me your number, your client number. If you're not there, so it's shutting down. But otherwise, on the other side, we are telling the algorithm that you have a problem with the battery. So it's telling us try to reset. If it's not that, okay, which kind of connection cellular data you are using? Are you using Facebook? I said I have cellular data. Are you using Facebook, Messenger, WhatsApp, whatever thing? So he's responding. So here on purpose, I'm not going to respond and right away, and then I'm going to respond to him that I'm using WhatsApp, and he's trying to understand if it's the usage of the WhatsApp, or otherwise the fact that it's connected to the Wi-Fi. I'm going to respond concerning the WhatsApp that I'm using 5-6 times. Then he will try, and it's not that, so he will go and try to find which kind of carrier that I'm using for my cellular network. So he's going to try to understand and to identify where the problem is so he can provide a solution. If he can't do it, then he will be redirected to a call center with human being that will have all the conversation in front of him so he can go from there, which is something that can reduce really the pressure on call centers and the timing when you have an algorithm able to resolve the first, second, and third layer of questioning that the customer could have.
And there are 15 minutes. 15 minutes have passed. Thank you for the special view. Thank you for the icons of support. If you'd like to connect up with the speakers, do so in the chat. So I'm going to give you one more chance to have the AI robot read to you and give you an overview of what to expect. So, as you know, we have speakers that are live, and we have speakers that have recorded, but it's all original for us. And as we glance at the press release, it said the monthly spotlight of the artificial intelligence speakers. And so far, we have heard from Maisa, there we go, Pena of Microsoft, Matt Lewis, and Nassim Belbali. And now we go to the person who has a strange company called Ideas with Legs. And his name is Niles Vesk. He's also from the land down under, and has put together a talk entitled Building an Innovative, Productive, AI-Empowered Culture. And the testimonial that was written by AI, according to their analysis of his PowerPoint slides, which are quite creative, they said Niles' approaches to cultivating an AI-centric culture is groundbreaking. Every business leader needs to hear this, said Grace Kim, who's an innovation lead. So we're going to go ahead now and hear from Niles. Enjoy 15 minutes of Ideas with Legs on building an innovative culture.
G'day, Nils Vesk here. Hey, it's an absolute pleasure and a privilege to be here today to talk to you about how we can create an innovative, productive, AI-empowered culture. And to do this, I'm going to share with you 8 proven principles that will enable you to create this AI-empowered culture a lot sooner than you think. Now, a little bit about me. I'm an innovation consultant, a speaker, a trainer, and an innovation author, and I work in over 17 countries around the world with some pretty impressive brands, I must admit. And today I want to share with you some of these ways that you can actually start to get innovation happening sooner than you think. Because I reckon we work way too hard to not be able to take advantage of this amazing technology. And I also know it sucks if you've got people in your team that are kind of resistant to innovating, and we're going to change all of that. Now, you might be wondering, I sound or I speak a bit different. Yep, I'm an Australian, but I work all around the world, and I'm sure you'll be able to understand me. So let's get stuck into it. But first up, there's a few obstacles that we need to put up with. 3, in fact. And the first one of those is the fear of job loss. I mean, let's face it, people are scared of losing their jobs due to AI. And there are going to be some people that will lose it. The second thing is the lack of AI skills. People are worried that they don't know or have the ability or the skills to utilize AI effectively. And the third thing that's stopping your people from embracing AI is the fear of making mistakes. And this is an inherent fear that all of us have. Actually, 9 out of 10 of us, according to research, have a fear of making mistakes, and we do everything to avoid them happening. The next thing that we need to be mindful of is that if we really want people to become AI empowered, that means we need to get them to change their behavior. We found through 20 years of experience plus that there are 3 proven ways to get people to have behavior change. And you need to have the want to, the chance to, and the how to. The want to, simply put, is having the motivation or inspiration, a narrative or a story that excites people or inspires people to change. The second thing is you've got to give people the chance to. This is the permission, the time or the space or a place to do it. And the third thing is you need to give them the how to. That's good old-fashioned tools and training and maybe some mentoring and coaching thrown into the mix there. When we have that, that's when we can create behavior change. All right, so let's get this show on the road. And the first thing I want to share with you is the fastest way to get your team on board with AI, even if they're kind of technophobes. And the first thing is having hands-on demonstrations. Really simply put, is show people how they can use AI for their particular role. And we've been doing this so often with our clients, they just realize how easy it can be to actually start to get jobs done, and the jobs that are really painful just become a thing of the past. The second thing that we need to do within this is to be able to address concerns. So we want to create an open forum for people where they can share what their thoughts or their worries are or their concerns. And we want to really show them how AI can assist them rather than replace the human effort that's already there. And the third component of being able to get people on board with using the AI is to consider creating champion users. And this is where we identify an early adopter and those that are interested in AI, and we train them up. And these champion users now can become internal influencers that show people how they can actually use AI and inspire people to do it as well. And the second principle that we've got is to craft a winning story, or a narrative, you want to call it that, to get people inspired to innovate. And what we want to do in this is to start off by sharing some success stories and even some case studies. Now, these can be both internal and external, but actually just show how AI created some great solutions and, most importantly, freed up people from that complex, overtaxing, uncomfortable, unenjoyable, nasty type of work. The other thing that we can do with this is to create co-creation messaging. So what I mean by that is, rather than talk about artificial intelligence all the time, start to use the word augmented intelligence. And kind of what we're trying to do here is to position the concept that it's AI is augmenting your own human strength or capabilities, not replacing it. And also to share the story that each one of these different areas brings a different strength. So AI will bring you speed and scale, while people bring you creativity and also EQ, emotional intelligence. And the other way that we can build a great, powerful narrative and story is to have town halls and create transparency. So you want to do some things. You want to be able to debunk all of those myths that people have about AI. And at the same time, you want to make sure that front and center, you're addressing any concerns that people have about their jobs and the security around it. The other thing that we can do is be really clear about saying what our objective is. So, our AI objective is to empower all of us in our day-to-day work so that we can become better. It's not to replace us, it's to help us become better. The third principle that we want to consider now is looking at how do we actually seamlessly integrate AI into your existing workflows, because we don't want to make things harder or worse than it actually is. We want to make it better to get better results. So there's a couple of different ways that we can do that. The first one is to make sure that we phase our implementation of rolling out AI. We don't want to just go hell for leather straight up. We want to do small bits, do some testing and adjustment. So one of the ways that we can do that is start off by having a small pilot program, get the feedback, and then we can start to scale up. The second component of this is about looking at workflow mapping. So look at the existing workflows and identify where the AI actually might be most beneficial. So we might be looking at the most complex or the most laborious tasks or the most mindless tasks. And what we want to do within our teams is to, get together and collaborate to find also the least disruptive points for AI integration. Because if we find something that's really going to stir things up, we're going to get a lot of pushback. And the thinking behind this is that, again, we want to complement rather than complicate the current processes. And the fourth principle is looking at how do we strike that balance between our AI pursuits without compromising our human ingenuity. Because if we lose that creativity, our emotional intelligence, and that human insight, then we've kind of given up the game. And the ways that we can start with this is to look at balancing automation with creative tasks. And a simple way to do this is to ask or to allocate a percentage of time for people to actually focus on creative projects that are separate from AI activities. Here are two more ways that we can balance things out. We want to have people-centric design principles. So that is, we want to remember that everyone's a human. So we want to make things as intuitive and easy as possible. And we want to make sure that we keep human input for our decision making and strategic direction. So a way to think about this is the AI is going to do the hard yards while we apply the creative insights and also that decision making. The next thing that we can do is to make sure that we have skills reviews. So we want to be able to assess that not only we're becoming proficient in AI, but we're also maintaining our creative thinking skills. So we also want to make sure amongst the skills reviews that then we've got training that is targeting things that we can't do with AI. So that might be things around EQ or empathy, or maybe it's around, trouble problem solving, or it might be about leadership and the sort. Now, the fifth principle is about creating great feedback that enables us to improve our AI, but also to amplify, to turn up the innovative thinking that we know is so important. And there's 4 ways we can do that, but let's start off with the first one, which is around real-time performance monitoring. And this is where we're tracking KPIs with analytic-driven analytics platforms. And what we can do within those things is have some automated alerts that tell us when we've moved away from our benchmarks, when we're going up or we're going down. It's like, hey, it also enables us to say there might be a potential problem going on here. Let's look at it further. The next thing that we can do is get clear about dual feedback loops. This is when we look at implementing 2 types of systems. One where we've got a loop that's, collecting all of the data and refining things such as AI algorithms, so very much AI based. But the second loop then is actually using AI to, gather together and analyze all of the feedback from whether it's from team members, customers, or even stakeholders. And the other 2 feedback mechanisms that we can use to fine-tune our AI and amplify our innovation is to have idea exchanges and A/B testing. And it's pretty simple when we think about it. An idea exchange is where we allow people to share new tools, some new applications, and also what they think they can do to improve the AI. Now, it's important that we don't just rely on some digital idea sharing space. I must admit, I'm not a fan of them because we end up with a giant dump of ideas. It's much better to have templates that get people to self-assess their ideas and use some criteria that makes it really easy for sorting. And the other component is to have A/B testing. And this is when we evaluate the projects of their effectiveness versus the traditional methods of doing it by hand or by our own human effort. And also we can use this in so many different areas. We can use it from marketing strategies to new product features and the sort. And the 6th principle is to actually look at measuring the ROI. Now, don't freak out. It's not as complex as it needs to be, but it's really important to understand how our culture is going. And so to do that, some of the things that we can do is to look at having some KPI tracking. So we want to look at our key performance indicators, whether it's cost reduction, whether it's increased efficiency. Maybe it's around we've got better, happier customers, or maybe it's around a set of specific desired behaviors on innovation or AI. The other thing that we want to have is a cost benefit analysis. So we want to look at how much the AI actually costs from a software, hardware perspective, but also the costs in terms of the workflow disruptions or maybe the training that's involved. And then what we want to do is we want to compare that total cost against the benefits, and that might be around customer satisfaction, revenue, or the time saved. And let's not forget benchmarking. This is where we want to look at evaluating how good these AI tools are, as well as the behaviors. Now, a behavior needs to be something that is observable, measurable, and specific. Being innovative is not a behavior, that's a trait. But inviting other people to look at our latest AI tool to look for feedback, that is an observable, measurable, specific behavior. And the 7th principle is around education. We want to blend AI with innovative thinking. And to do that, what we want to look at is to make sure that we've got a dual track learning pathway. So that means on one side, we're teaching AI, and the other side, we're doing innovative and creative thinking. And if you can, make sure you offer a certificate to show completion. It helps to boost the reward and recognition systems. The second thing that we want to have is mentorship. So we want to pair people, someone who's good with AI, maybe someone who's good at innovative or creative thinking. But make sure that you have some milestones that show or enable people to see how they're improving in AI, and also they're still contributing with their innovative problem solving in the projects that are around. And the eighth and final principle is to make sure while we're building this culture that we never forget that we've got to keep human ingenuity front and center. And one of the ways that we can do that is by incentivizing creative problem solving. And by this, what I mean is we can have some rewards or some recognition systems in there that enable people to be recognized for leveraging AI to solve a lot of problems that are out there. And two more favorite ways that we can actually make this happen. One is to have AI hackathons. So I'm sure you've heard of a hackathon, but make one for AI. We've done plenty of these before, where we look at ways that we can develop some AI solutions to some current pressing urgent company challenges. And the next one, not rocket science, get people working across different teams to solve problems that are real and pressing right there and then. And one more thing about behavior, you need to have motivation, ability, and prompt coming together at the same time. So here's 5 final takeaways. Number 1, expect a couple of bumps along the road, but just learn from them and you'll get through it really easily. Number 2, be open to unlearning new ways of doing things because there's new technology. Third one is around iterate. So that is, don't aim for perfect, just aim at getting it better each and every time. 4, make the time to have a bit of a giggle, reflect back, but most importantly, to try. And the 5th and final one is go easy on yourself as well as your team, because change can be difficult, especially when technology is involved. So there you have it, 8 principles to help you create an AI-empowered, innovative and productive culture. If you're looking at the next steps, what I'd really encourage you to do is to download our free Innovative Culture Checklist. It's got 55 action steps to help you create an AI innovative culture, to help you create some great results. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Niles. I appreciate you. I appreciate the time that you spent getting up early in the morning to have a coffee conversation about what you might share and what you might cover. And you certainly exceeded a lot of expectations, and people love what you have shared. So we're seeing in the chat. And speaking of the chat, some of you have joined within the past half hour, joined a little late, and know that we have a series of speakers. Can you hear me now? Give me a heads up. Okay, great. Welcome back, everyone. And we are looking at the press release that captured a lot of people's attention because it was written via AI. So I invite you to take a look at the AI-empowered writing that was done. We just finished up with Niles. And now we go live to Neha Shukla of Duke University. And she's got a long title. I'm going to read the whole thing to you and highlight it. It really goes well, which is Future of the AI Revolution, Building Ethical and Equitable Tech for Society. And so what did the testimonial say? There was a man named Fareed Ahmad, a tech ethicist, who said Shukla's vision of an ethical AI landscape is not just inspiring, but necessary. Her talk was a standout. Oh, there we go. This is our 5th speaker of the day. And then we're going to go to Greg Brockman from OpenAI. And so I'd I'd like to welcome Neha and her 20 creative PowerPoint presentations.
Thank you so much, Gerald, for the introduction. Let me go ahead and share my slides.
Welcome.
All right. Can everybody hear me all right?
Great audio.
Perfect. I'm so excited to be speaking about the AI revolution. As we all know, artificial intelligence is transforming our world, and we're seeing buzzwords like generative AI, ChatGPT, Midjourney, and DALL-E becoming very, very prominent in conversation. But right now is a critical moment where we need to understand the entire landscape of artificial intelligence development, from building AI for social good to understanding the ethical challenges facing AI today. But before I get into that, I'd love to share a little bit about my background. My name is Neha Shukla. I'm 18 years old, and I'm a New York Times featured AI developer, best-selling author, and chair of the World Economic Forum's Generation AI Youth Council. And what I work on is developing tech for social good, tackling challenges in my community, as well as advocating for ethical and responsibly designed AI policy. I work alongside corporations like Microsoft that you saw on the previous slide, as well as policymakers and educators on reimagining the future of innovative and inclusive AI, as well as looking at how we can make sure that the AI we're building is serving all parts of society. So it's been very exciting to be able to contribute to that initiative over the years. And I'd like to share a little bit of where it all started, to show the power of bringing in youth voices into your organization. It started when I was 15 years old, and at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, and I taught myself how to code when I saw the devastation of the pandemic on my small town community. So I wanted to do something. Within the first few weeks of the pandemic, I taught myself how to code, and I developed 6 Feet Apart, which is a wearable social distancing device to save lives during the pandemic. It was a very simple solution, but it kickstarted my love for developing tech and using tech to solve problems in my community. And that summer, my idea was going viral, and my story was picked up by the New York Times as corporations and community organizations were supporting me in turning my prototype and initial idea into something that could be used to create tangible change. Since then, when I was 16, I developed the PA Homeless Guide app, which is an iOS app combating homelessness in my home state of Pennsylvania through connecting youth volunteers to understaffed homeless shelters that are in dire need of volunteers. And I had the opportunity to present my idea at Apple's headquarters in New York City to Apple CEO Tim Cook and Carly Kloss, which was such an honor. And then when I was 17, I interned at NASA working on Earth orbiting satellites, specifically monitoring emerging wildfires and oceanic oil spills to protect Earth's most vulnerable areas from climate change. And that was such an exciting summer, and so much progress was made. And most recently, I'm now a freshman at Duke University, double majoring in computer science and public policy with a specialization in innovation and entrepreneurship. And starting my college journey has given me so much insight, and I'm very grateful for that. And throughout this journey, I've been a strong advocate for bringing female and underrepresented voices into technology, because the tech space could really benefit from the diversity of perspectives that we have to offer. And so the point of me sharing a little bit of my journey is to highlight that this is not just my story. This is the story of millions of Gen Z across the world who are advocating for change, who are taking matters into their own hands, who are teaching themselves technology or learning as much as they can and advocating and pushing for real change. So it's extremely powerful to see the potential of organizations incorporating more youth voices into their mission. But diving right into it, I'd love to talk about the future of artificial intelligence, which I believe is developing AI for social good. I was recently at the United Nations General Assembly in New York City, and in conversations with large companies like Microsoft down to smaller startups and nonprofits, one thing was very, very clear, which is that the future of business is developing tech for social good, not only is it good for people and it's good for the planet, it's also good for profits. So that was one major learning from the United Nations that I took away from me. And I highly encourage all of you to consider ways that if you're looking to incorporate AI into your business practice, the ways that you can do that. And so whether it's looking at, incorporating large language models like ChatGPT into girls' education in rural areas and seeing how we can develop personalized study plans, or using image recognition systems to help farmers detect crop disease at an early stage, or all the way to using large protein folding softwares like AlphaFold in developing and accelerating global drug discovery efforts. There are so many ways that you can connect artificial intelligence to the purpose of your organization and make sure that we're not only accelerating the impact of your organization, but also serving the people around you and the people in your community. And all of this goes without saying that intergenerational collaboration is key to making this happen. Whether it's bringing in young interns or speaking with young people on the ground in the community during pilot testing and other efforts, or even co-creating AI algorithms and strategy around that with young people who are most likely going to be a large percentage of users of AI algorithms, it's incredibly powerful for organizations to think about ways in which we can leverage intergenerational collaboration. And I personally believe that AI is a really powerful technology. It has so much potential for creating positive change in our society, but also we need to acknowledge its challenges and the ways in which we need to improve in terms of ethics and bias. Firstly, I'd like to share a little bit about how AI is perpetuating inequity and discrimination, usually surrounding race, gender, and socioeconomic class. One example of this is looking at how the criminal justice system often has begun using facial recognition algorithms to support in its filings and proceedings, and often people of color are getting wrongfully arrested for crimes they did not commit, simply because facial recognition algorithms are not sufficiently trained on the faces of people of color. Another example is in hiring biases, when decades of historic hiring data that shows that a male applicant equals a successful candidate is now keeping women and people of color and minorities out of jobs simply because of these automated AI algorithms. Another key area that a key challenge of AI is the mental health crisis in America. When we're seeing, AI-powered social media algorithms promoting filtered, edited, and disingenuous content over genuine and authentic content, we're seeing a massive rise in the mental health crisis in young people, looking at depression, anxiety, and eating disorders. These are all very real problems and things that young people are experiencing, and they simply because algorithms aren't designed to be protecting young children, especially in early stage development. And the third issue that I'd like to talk about today is the misinformation and disinformation epidemic. With the rise of generative AI, which we all love, it has been creating challenges in terms of AI-generated images and articles that are showing, news of a natural disaster or an attack on a city that never happened, spreading widespread chaos and confusion. And we're certainly seeing this with today's Israel-Palestine conflict in terms of AI-generated content, making it difficult for us to discern what is true and what isn't. This is truly fundamentally redefining what it means for something to be truth. And I think it's something that we need to all consider. All of these are very, very large and complex and nuanced issues. And I think us as developers, as organizations, and as society at large, it's our responsibility to be tackling these ethical challenges with artificial intelligence. But I don't just see it as a responsibility, I see it as an opportunity for us to innovate and iterate and find new ways that we can make sure that the AI that we're building isn't just short-term, but long-term can support and serve society. So I'd love to look forward to the future of ethical AI. To me, this involves three main components. Firstly, looking at hiring more diverse engineers that reflect the diversity of our world, looking at racial, gender, age, ethnic background, diversity, and seeing how we can make sure that companies are hiring diverse engineers and leaders that are shaping fundamentally the structure of these algorithms. Secondly, looking at the sourcing of data. Often large language models like ChatGPT are built off of data from the internet, which we all know is a biased and prejudiced place. So how can we find new sources of data that doesn't reflect and amplify the worst of our world, but instead is fair and equitable? And the third major thing is looking at guidelines and regulations in a collaboration between companies and the government and young voices to make sure that AI is serving society. And I'd love to share a little bit of what I've been working on with the World Economic Forum and the Generation AI Youth Council. We launched the AI for Children Toolkit in partnership with the World Economic Forum's Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution. It's a document that highlights ways in which companies can protect children's rights in the development of AI. And we've launched a really simple acronym called FIRST, which stands for Fair, Inclusive, Responsible, Safe, and Transparent Design Principles in the Deployment of AI. So I really hope you give it a look. It's really a helpful resource in terms of companies and shaping out the pipeline of AI development. And the last thing I'd like to share before closing out my talk today is something I'm very excited about. And right now, right here, I'm going to be sharing that I'm launching a kid's book about AI, and the pre-order is currently out right now. It is such an honor to be able to share this with all of you today as the first to know about the launch of this book, where we're building AI awareness in youth. The book covers the basics of artificial intelligence, not just generative AI, but looking at all the different applications of AI and the ways in which it can create positive change in society, the ethical challenges facing AI, and future looking forward to how we can all be part of the conversation in AI. So if you're a parent, an educator, and know any children in your life, please give the pre-order a check out. It is an incredible way to not only support my journey, but also increase the public awareness of artificial intelligence. Thank you so much for listening to my talk today. And it's truly so exciting to see what the potential and possibilities are when we all collaborate and look to the future and reimagining what artificial intelligence could look like. Thank you.
Wonderful. You ended up 2 minutes early. So I keep thinking what a bonus 2 minutes of time you're giving people right now during this AI summit to kind of reflect on what they've heard from you and what you've accomplished and what you are accomplishing to this very day with a new announcement of your book. So congratulations and so forth. And make sure you put a link into the chat now. All of you that are looking to network with other AI innovators, you've come to the right place. You've got a huge group online, and you can put your name and URL for your LinkedIn profile in the chat, and people will find you as well. Speaking of the chat, some of you have wised up to the discovery that there's a lot of valuable information in the chat from very interesting people in diverse backgrounds and from all over the world. And so you might want to figure out a way to copy the chat now, or copy parts of the chat that you want to make sure you saved so that if you go into a breakout room, you won't lose it. And speaking of the chat and breakout rooms, I want all of you to keep in mind that you get to meet the speakers and connect up with them and network with them during the post-summit speed networking event that we do on Zoom rooms. And so all of you are invited to join us And as a matter of fact, make it easy for you to write down the website name that you want to write down right now is networkonzoom.com. Networkonzoom.com. That's a registration page where you just need to put your first and last name and email, and then you can join up. And that's where we'll be going to have conversations with people and have people like Matt Lewis and Neha go ahead and make some great contributions to some more conversations. So speaking of more conversations, as we look at that press release, we come to the portion called the showcase speaker, and that's Greg Brockman. And Greg is the co-founder of OpenAI, and his current title is he's president. He's also got the title of co-inventor of ChatGPT. So I thought it would be interesting to get a glimpse of the thinking behind one of the pioneers in the AI space and so forth. And the title or the testimonial, according to Maria Vasquez, an AI journalist, said that the presentation was a riveting session with Brockman, getting insights directly from the co-inventor of ChatGPT was a highlight. So that's what they had to say about his presentation. Since his presentation is a showcase, that means that we give him a lot of time to give you a glimpse. So we have less than an hour. It's 47 minutes long. We normally like to keep it at 45. But we just had such good information to go ahead and share as you learn from Greg Brockman. And Greg is going to be speaking from the alma mater that he doesn't always talk about. As a high school student, he went to the University of North Dakota in Grand Forks, North Dakota. And he recently visited a few hundred students about his life as a student and what he learned on his journey to what now leads to the new generation of OpenAI pioneers. So with that, I invite you to enjoy the interview with the artificial intelligence genius that you've been waiting for.
So Greg is the co-founder and president of OpenAI. And OpenAI, of course, has been at the leading front of the development of generative AI tools, and most notably ChatGPT and DALL-E and many others. And so it's just a thrill to have him here. One of the goals of OpenAI, of course, is to create a general purpose AI and really looking at the benefits to society about how we can use these tools to make life better for all of us human beings. And so we're so thrilled. ChatGPT, by the way, was the fastest growing app in the history of apps. And I think he had about, 1 million users in 5 days, right? So it was a meteoric launch. So
not what we expected either.
Yeah, right.
We thought we called it a low-key research preview. We thought it was going to be like, a couple hundred people, like mostly our friends.
And you got 1 million in 5 days.
We got 1 million in 5 days.
Yeah.
So we actually have these little stickers now that say low-key research preview and have a computer that's on fire and everything's going down.
It's awesome. And so there's tremendous growth and the attention that it's garnered since its launch. And I of course, think about a year prior to the launch of ChatGPT, November 22nd, right, of 2022. I think it was November 1st of 2021, there was a book that came out by Eric Schmidt, Henry Kissinger, and Huttenlocher, and they talked about the age of AI and what it means for us as humans, and the challenges and the incredible opportunities that it presents. And so that was a prescient book, and then lo and behold, a year later was the launch of ChatGPT. So Greg has a long history of looking at not just AI, but the ethics and the philosophy behind AI, and how do we make opportunities exist for society and for human beings. So we're thrilled to have you here, and we'll do a series of questions from me, but then we had also asked a number of students for their questions as well, and we'll go through those too.
Sounds great.
You ready?
I am.
Okay, first question. So tell us about your journey. I mentioned Thompson, North Dakota. Tell us about your journey from Thompson, North Dakota to where you are now.
Yeah. So, you know, Thompson was a really wonderful place to grow up. Just super safe. Like our doors didn't even really have locks. And I think that it's just very different in many places, many other places in the country, to kind of have the same kind of just like sort of idyllic lifestyle. You know, so I actually was going to school in Grand Forks, which, you know, 8-mile drive away. And so it was very rare that like people would come over and be able to hang out with people after school. So I had a lot of time on my hands, time that I spent exploring my own interests, got very interested in math competitions, got very interested in doing research, some of which I did at University of North Dakota. And I also got very interested in playing computer games, which maybe many people can relate. But I was very lucky to that my parents actually were very supportive of these interests. And you know, our dad, when I was in 6th grade, started teaching me algebra, and that was kind of the first step towards this sort of independent path that I ended up taking. And throughout middle school, I was doing independent study, and then high school, I was taking calculus in freshman year, and then I was out of classes at my high school. But fortunately, there was University of North Dakota right down the street. And so I took most of my classes at UND. I actually did 3 years worth of coursework here. And that was something that really helped me just delve deeper into what I was excited about. And I think that is maybe the biggest theme for my life and my career so far, has been to just kind of just try to take a path that's just different from other people. And it doesn't have to be the specific one that I did. In fact, it kind of shouldn't be, right? That if anyone is interested in just finding what they're passionate about and just not following the beaten path, it should look unique to you. It should be something that is authentic to you. And so, you know, I graduated and I went to Harvard initially, and I was there for a year and a half, transferred to MIT, dropped out of MIT to go do a startup. And the thing that really got me was when I started programming, that, you know, with math that I've been really into, I was into chemistry, all these things. It's these very abstract thinking. There are these moments where it clicks. And when it clicks, then you kind of understand something and you solve this math problem, or you come up with an answer to the chemistry problem. But with programming, you actually have a system. You actually have something that works, and anyone else can use it. They don't have to understand the details of what you did, just the intent, the vision that you had. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And so I actually spent all of my sort of formal university years trying to do startups, and most of them were very bad. You've never heard of them, for good reason. But from each one, I learned another thing not to do. And then I met people working, there were 3 people working on this payment startup in Palo Alto called Dev Payments at the time. Pretty terrible name. You've also never heard of it. But I was like, these are the kind of people that I just want to be around. I want to learn from. And so I dropped out to go just work with them. No matter where you're going, if you're dropping out of Harvard, your parents are going to be a little bit worried. So they were worried when I went to MIT. And then if you leave MIT, no matter what you're about to do, they're also going to be extremely worried. So actually they sent one of our cousins to come check up on me to make sure that this company actually existed and that I was able to eat. I didn't actually have a bed at the time. I was sleeping on the floor doing the whole startup thing. But it was a really wonderful experience. I really learned how to build. And while I was at this company, which, you know, I renamed to Stripe, which, you know, maybe people have heard of, I started to watch deep learning from the outside. You know, AI had always been the thing for me that maybe one day I'd be able to work on, but I wasn't sure when or how to contribute. And you could see, just like if you read sites like Hacker News, you could see something new in AI happening every day and deep learning every day, but I had no idea what deep learning was. And so I met someone working in the field, and he introduced me to more people working in the field. And I kept getting introduced to all my smartest friends from college. And that was a sign for me of, aha, I think that there's something real going on here. Maybe it's time to contribute. And so that was, part of the impetus for me to leave Stripe and to start OpenAI.
Yeah, and we were comparing notes backstage, and some noted professors of mine back at MIT were involved in traditional called optimization techniques, which was my field. And they too, probably in the 2013, 2014, 2015 timeframe, had said the same thing. But there's something magical about deep learning and machine learning in general. And lo and behold, here we are today. And so let's go back to UND. And what are your memories of being here? And we have to give a huge shout out to Ryan Zier, Professor Zier. Where is he?
Right over there.
There he is. Who one day was sitting in his office and Greg comes walking by and says, "Hey, I think I'd like to study something here." Or that's my version of the story. Tell us about your version of the story and how it began.
That's basically accurate. So again, I'd finished up the math at Red River High School in 9th grade, and that was actually a great experience. I was really into math competitions. I was just like, math, like this is the thing. I want to study so much of it. And in middle school, I had to independent study classes because I didn't have a car. I couldn't go to the high school. But sophomore year of high school, driver's license. So I was able to actually drive from Red River to UND. And that I had a setup where I just took 3 classes at Red River and then whatever I wanted at University of North Dakota, which was wonderful. So the first class I took was set theory and logic with Dr. Zier. And I was definitely the smallest person in the class, but I had a great time and people were happy to like work on problem sets with me and all that stuff. And I just felt very welcomed. And I took a bunch of other classes. I took organic chemistry with Dr. Smoliakova. I took philosophy with Dr. Weinstein, I believe. And that was actually a really wonderful class because it was philosophy through film, Western philosophy through film. And so you actually watch a lot of movies and you have a good excuse for it. But it was just so interesting, right? There are all these like little facts that you never think about. Like, for example, one that really stuck with me is that water in Western symbology is chaos and rebirth. And so if you're watching a movie and it's raining, and the characters are not in the rain, that usually means chaos. And then when they actually go into the rain, that means that like rebirth, and it's kind of the end. And if you watch movies with that lens, you're just like, yeah, that's once again, it's like the rain, it's like this is the everyone's upset at each other part, and then the everyone goes out into the rain, and it's like, okay, this is now everyone reconciles. And just funny when you realize you think there's so many degrees of freedom in our society that everything is made new, but actually everything's connected. Everything is just a slight deviation from everything that has come before it. And I think that realization that there's both like that to create something new is both the synthesis of you have to understand the things that came before you and the context that you're in, but you also need that little spark of creativity to specialize it to your special case, to think of what is the thing that what are the connections no one else has made. So that's something that really stuck with me. And it's a very, it's not a technical thing, but I think it's actually really underlined a lot of what I've done.
Nice. And in your short-lived stay in college, you had 3 degrees that are an interesting collection. Share those with us.
Well, so I thought when I was here that I was going to go and do a math, a chemistry, and philosophy triple major at Harvard or MIT. None of those ended up happening. I have 0 degrees. Sadly, my wife is the educated one in the family, so we appreciate that.
Yeah. But just that mixture, the philosophy edition ties to what you talked about in Professor Weinstein's course and what you were exposed to there as well. So back to AI and the choice to kind of delve in. So you were at Stripe, you said, hey, something about deep learning is something you really want to pursue. Tell me more about that motivation about pursuing AI.
Yeah, so for me, the beginning of the AI journey was actually after I graduated from high school. So I took a year off before jumping into these colleges for my short-lived stint. And
I didn't mean that as an insult,
no, not at all, not at all. And I went abroad. And actually in high school, I've been taking Latin. By the way, anyone here take Latin? Very few. I recommend. I recommend it. I think you learn a lot of the underlying structure about why the world is the way that it is. At least our part in the Western Hemisphere. But senior year, our mother said you have to take a real language. So she was of the opinion of everyone who didn't raise their hand. And I was like, fine, I'm going to take Russian because it felt to me like in Western Europe, lots of people speak English, and Russia felt like just a place that I didn't know much about and I wanted to learn about. And so I actually took the year off after high school and went to Russia for 4 months. And there I, once again, had lots of time that was very self-directed. And so I started to read about programming, because I never really done it. I was kind of curious about it. And I read the 1950 paper by Alan Turing, where he talks about the Turing test. By the way, how many people know what the Turing test is? Raise your hand. Okay, more hands than take Latin. So it's the idea of how can you tell if a machine is intelligent? In 1950, Alan Turing, who's amazingly brilliant computer scientist, proposed the idea that maybe what you could do is if you talk through a chat system, so you can't see who you're talking to, a human, and you talk to an AI, and you can't tell which one's which, then you can say that that AI is intelligent, that it actually is smart. And he actually even laid out an idea for how to solve it. He said, look, you'll never program an answer. It's just too complicated. You can't write down all the rules. Instead, maybe you could build a child machine that can learn like a human child. You give it rewards and punishments when it does something good or bad. And maybe from that, you could actually solve this test. And when I saw that, I was like, this idea of you could actually build systems that can solve problems that you yourself do not know the solution to. You can't write down the rules, and yet you can build a machine that solves it. I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever heard, right? Because there's so many challenges that we know we're not really going to be able to solve. We haven't made progress on them in thousands of years, or new challenges. Think about like climate change. Like, how do you solve that? It's this complex coordination, technological, societal problem, extremely hard. And so if we had better tools, if we had some way of building systems that could solve problems, help us solve problems that we could not on our own, like that is the way. Now, the only problem is nothing worked. When I showed up in Harvard, I actually did the same thing that I did with Dr. Zier. I went to a professor. I said, hey, could I do research with you in natural language processing? And he showed me these like parsed trees, and I was like, okay, this is clearly not going to scale. It's like you're still writing down the rules. But 2015, that is when you started to see that, there is a general purpose approach that is actually knocking down the walls between departments, whether it was image recognition where it started, machine translation, all these different fields. You have 40 years worth of research, people were throwing it out, replacing it with the neural nets. And I was like, this is very interesting, and I just want to help support it.
Nice. Which ultimately, a couple of years down the road, led to the founding of OpenAI and the co-founding. And did you know that the technology that you were building would have the impact that it has initially? And tell us about that vision that you had when you founded OpenAI.
Well, I'd say yes, and even more, right? I think we are still very much in the early days. And that's a really sobering thought, right? That a lot of when we started OpenAI 2015, you could kind of, if you were in the weeds, right? If you're really sort of talking to the people that were doing it, you could see the shape of what was coming, right? That you're like, okay, it's like these methods that are very general, but still wasn't necessarily something you would use yourself. It wasn't a consumer product. It was still kind of like a little bit, there's always this S curve from pure science to pure engineering, and we were starting to enter it. And we spent a lot of time, because a lot of the ethos of OpenAI is not just let's build the thing, but it's think about the impact, right? Like I think this technology is so desirable, it will be built with or without us. But what we can do, what we can all do, is help steer it, is help decide how we want it to integrate with society, how we want to work with it, how we want this to integrate with our lives. And so in 2015, we spent a lot of time really thinking about this. You take it really seriously. You sort of condition on your own success, and you think about what must you go through. And we really had this picture that, that you're going to go through a lot of these like cool demonstration systems. And we did that, 2018, we solved a competitive video game called Dota. You're going to go through a very commercial phase where this is like the most interesting new technology. Crypto was occupying that slot for a while, but hopefully we are delivering more lasting substance. And but things are going to get even more serious, right? You think about how we organize the world, and how you think about impact on jobs, and just like what it even means. Like if you move to a post-scarcity society, just how do you make sure that everyone has not just enough, but actually everyone has just like lots, right? Not just universal basic income, but universal high income for everyone. And especially in a world where you have just like a very different sort of relationship to where cognitive labor is done than we have today. And so there's a lot to think through. And ultimately, you think about the balance of power between different nations, but even beyond, if you build incredibly smart systems, and we're not close yet, but it might be closer than people think. At some point, the technology itself is something you have to worry about. right? That we've all seen the movies about the crazy AIs, and I think actually the scenarios that people think about are probably not the ones that will happen. But I think it is important to think about each of these risks of people, sort of misusing the technology, of the technology being integrated in society in a way that just somehow is just bad, and the technology itself becoming a risk. And so we need to kind of navigate through all of that. And I think that the most important thing is to capture the benefits along the way. And so, by the way, how many people here are ChatGPT users? Have tried it at least once? All right, so decent show of hands there.
More than
Thank
Latin.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad we're more popular than Latin. That is good. But that is, I think, this system is the least good it will ever be, right? It's only going to get better from here. And I think that there's going to be step functions each year in terms of what we're able to do, not just in text, but across every single domain of AI.
Well, so as we saw, many of the people in the room have used ChatGPT. For many, this is the first time they've knowingly had this type of interaction with an AI or a generative AI tool. And so when you look out over the next 10 years, I think you started answering this already, but the next big jumps. And I'm particularly interested in knowing, right now AI is really crafted around specific use cases. In other words, I want to look at something within medicine or cancer drugs, and there's an AI that's tuned for that. What about the steps towards an artificial general intelligence, which is what many consider to be the kind of the end all? I don't know if it's the end all or not, but the ultimate goal of human-like intelligence with these machines.
So the mission of OpenAI is to ensure that artificial general intelligence benefits all of humanity. Like, that's what we're really here for. Like, it's nice that we have a consumer product that's has grown so fast, so many people use and love, but that's not our mission. It is a tool towards our mission, right? That we want to not just build the technology, but actually also integrate it with society. And that was something that was actually a very hard decision to make, right? That there were big debates about maybe what you should do is build this stuff in secret, and then one day, like, you have something very powerful, you have time to make it safe and sort of test it in the lab, and then you push go. And that was always really scary, right? The idea of, like, it just doesn't seem legitimate, right? To do such a powerful thing outside of, like, society should choose where we go. And I think that the fact that everyone is being educated, everyone has their hands on this technology, is probably one of the most important steps towards our mission. And I think that at a technological level, the way to think about it is, and again, all this stuff is so hard to picture because AI, I think, is like this incredibly surprising field. If you look back at most of the thinkers about how will AI look, no one really predicted it, right? No one predicted something like ChatGPT, right? People were thinking about, well, we'd have these, like, we'd write down all the rules and, like, we'd come up with some really smart, like, algorithm. Instead, this picture of actually compute, right? The computational power seems incredibly fundamental here. And it's not all you need, right? That it's compute, data, algorithms are kind of the three pillars here. We're going to keep putting more compute in. We're going to keep coming up with better algorithms. We're going to keep cleaning the data better and kind of getting more representative data of the world. But I think that the way to think about it is that ChatGPT is this, like, system that's actually, it basically knows everything, but it still makes these very non-human-like mistakes, right? It makes these, like, reasoning errors that you never would. And if it has like 2 or 3 steps of reasoning, sometimes it can do it. But, like, once you have 10 steps, it's gonna, like, fall off the rails and then say things that are not accurate. And I think, like, what does it mean if you can solve that problem? If you can actually have a machine that can have coherent thoughts and that you can just go off and think about a hard problem. And I think that is where the promise really lies, right? That's what we really want. We want to be able to present it with a hard material science problem. You want to be able to present it with even a hard, coordination problem of just, like, hey, we want to get everyone to the table to talk about this issue. Like, who should we call? Like, what should you say to different parties? Like, what does it seem like this person really wants? All of these, like, sort of deep things that feel very deeply human, but we're actually not that good at. That it's actually, you think about how much better coordinated of a world we could be if we had better machines, better tools to empathize with each other and really understand even just crossing language barriers and cultural barriers that are just hard to do unassisted. And I think that that's the place that we're going. And I think that it will help a lot with technology development. I think that today we're talking about thinking about how to use these tools in the classroom. I think it's actually a very important question too, of how do we all sort of, become better humans and, learn more and leverage these tools. But yeah, I think that the shape of the technology will become very different. And I think it'll be very different at each step. So kind of expect each year there's going to be something a little bit surprising. And I think in 10 years, like that it's really hard to put a bound on where we might be. Like, I think there is a decent chance, at this point, I think people are definitely saying, it's within the Overton window now to say that within 10 years, AGI is, it's not 100% guaranteed, but I think it's actually quite probable. And by the way, I think that one mistake we made in the early days was thinking of AGI as the end goal, right? That's basically like everything is focused towards this one moment, and then either success or fail, and that's it. But instead, I think it's a continuum, and it feels way more realistic to me.
Yeah, nice. And I know there are many predictions about when this happens. I think Ray Kurzweil predicted 2040, and there's been others. So it'll be interesting to watch these step developments that you describe as well.
Yes, actually, so the Ray Kurzweil thing I think is so interesting, right? Because so I think Kurzweil actually is maybe the thinker who has been the most predictive of what was going to happen. So in the early 2000s, he was like, compute, that's the thing. And everyone else was like, this makes no sense. So yeah, because he was drawing all these curves, he was like, okay, once you have enough compute to like, simulate like a human brain, then you'll have AGI. And everyone's like, why? Like, who cares if you have a fast computer? You need to figure out how to actually program it. That's the hard part, right? And now basically people have said, okay, fine, Ray was right. We'll figure out the programming part. And he said 2029 for the Turing test, which I think of when I think of that, that's kind of AGI level of like a machine that really you talk to it and it's fully human level and it doesn't have this like weird non-human mistakes. And 2045 for the full-on singularity, right? Which is like what you think of as what we call super intelligence. And that is going to be, I think, something that humanity should approach in a deeply coordinated fashion. We've been talking about this, many world leaders, the need for an international organization like the IEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency. And I think that if we can actually come together as humanity to build this kind of system, then I think we actually have a shot at something just like truly unimaginable.
I was going to ask about balancing the risks versus the benefits to the world, and I think you just hit on it. So you do see a role for some kind of cross-governmental cooperation to make sure we keep things within bounds?
Absolutely. The funny thing is that a year ago, and believe me, we've been having these kinds of conversations since we started OpenAI, since really even before. The idea of international coordination would kind of laugh you out of a room, right? Just like people are just like, everyone's in it for themselves. Like there's just no hope to actually coordinate. Like government doesn't know what they're doing. Like all these things that are just like standard tropes. And again, it never really resonated, right? It always felt like the world is not a stationary place. Like people update fast. And you can see since the release of ChatGPT, it used to really be hard for us to, we spent a lot of time trying to outreach to various governments, and it was kind of hard to get them to pick up the phone. I mean, understandably so. They've got so many other issues they were dealing with. Think about the pandemic versus like talking about some crazy AI thing. But it's been very different this year, right? That I think that every leader realizes that they need to get smart about this for their own country and for humanity, and that it's become actually people are really latching on to this talking point of saying, hey, it's not just going to be every country for themselves in some sort of like, deadlocked race. I think that we need some sort of coordination. And of course, we shouldn't be naive, right? I think that everyone has like some amount of thinking about their own citizens, and they should. But I think that there's also, as you start to understand the power of this technology, the potential power, that you realize that we do need to work together. We do need some sort of international guardrails and oversight. And you think about the kind of data centers we're going to build, basically these machines that are just these giant machines bigger than anyone's built before. And those are things that there should be some sort of international oversight for. And you actually can do it. Like it's not going to be that many organizations that will be able to build these things. And so I think that there's just this non-stationary equilibrium. And people kind of look at the way that things are, look at how everyone's thinking today. But what is kind of our responsibility, what we think about is where will it be? Where is the ball going? And trying to build for that. And so we look a little bit crazy in the short term. We fortunately look a little bit less crazy now than we used to. We still look a little bit crazy, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I think that, I think time will tell.
So let me pull back from the geopolitical context and to college campuses, right? So you have a room full of students and educators, and what are you thinking about in terms of the impact of AI on how we educate future students?
Yeah, I think that two things. First of all, one of the maybe the most important message that I want to get across today is one of empowerment, right? That we are not deciding the future, right? We are building tools, but how do people use these tools? Where do we want them? Where do we not want them? That's something that we can't decide on our own. And I think that it's been really amazing hearing so many stories from different people about how they're using ChatGPT. right? And I think that the first reaction many people have when they see new technology is ban it. It's bad. Not unique to AI at all, but you look at New York City public schools, for example, and that was the first thing they did. And now it's unbanned, right? Now they're really leaning in. And I think that figuring out how to navigate that's something that I've actually been really, really encouraged to see. And so I think that, it's a little bit like we're all going to be entering a world with AI as a tool. It's a little bit like computers, right? It's just like who has not used a computer in the past day, including like your cell phone, any other computer? If I see a hand, I'll be shocked, right? Like I think AI will be like that, right? In a really deep way. And so, yeah, you need to be not just using it, you need to become an expert. I was actually talking to a friend who's a professor who's saying that, they were trying to figure out their school how to deal with, students who might be using ChatGPT for admissions essays. And her kid suggested, actually, I think that you should admit the people who use ChatGPT the best. And it's just like this different perspective of not just thinking about, well, we used to work this way and now we have this tool, it kind of threatens it. And there's some of that's important. But I think that the real winners, and I think this actually can change even the balance of which institutions are the most thriving, like where do all the students want to go, is to think about what are the things that we couldn't do at all? What are the things that were totally impossible you couldn't even dream of, and now you can do with ChatGPT? And so I'm hopeful that we are providing something that unlocks opportunities.
Nice. And in previous interviews elsewhere, you've talked about AI as a tool that can essentially serve as an always-on teacher or tutor that can understand and perhaps even motivate a student. Well, if this happens, what's the role of the traditional educators?
So, yeah, I think that it's a great question, right? And again, there's a question of some amount of direct replacement and some amount of new opportunity that was totally impossible. And, I think about the fact that everyone kind of has that one teacher that they remember who like really inspired them, motivated them. We've talked about Dr. Zier. I think he definitely did that for me. But imagine if you could have that 24/7 for any subject you wanted, and, that you have this AI that you have a long-lived, relationship with, in the sense that it understands you. It really has seen your learning progression. It kind of gets your style, that it kind of knows that like, hey, like, you really should be doing your homework now, like whatever the things are that you just simply could not find humans to do. And there's so many studies that show, there's like the 2 Sigma study showing that personalized education actually is like basically the one thing that actually moves student outcomes. And it's like, there's so much opportunity. And so I guess the question is, well, as a teacher with a lot of students, there's zero chance you're going to be able to be that teacher for all of them. And now if you have a bot that you're able to work with too, and you're able to sort of present it to the students and work with that, how do you bring that into your classroom in order to help you do things you could not do otherwise? And I think maybe this is an important thing, right? Is that, so we work with Khan Academy, for example, and that they took our same technology that powers ChatGPT and built a system for schools. And they're actually that, you kind of have the students and you have the teachers and the parents all as users of the system. And that's something that, again, like we're not able to go and just build that ourselves. It requires a lot of expertise and a lot of thinking. And so I guess it's like, you don't just want the raw technology, you want to build these layers on top that integrate it and kind of give it to the right people with the right sort of oversight in order to make sure that you're getting the benefits.
Nice. We have a series of student questions as well that I'll go through, but first, my final question. Actually, I defer to ChatGPT on this one. So I'd like to say, if you don't like the question, tough. This is your doing. So if ChatGPT could experience emotions, what do you think it would feel when it successfully helps someone? And conversely, what would happen when it makes a mistake?
Well, I certainly hope that it would feel great pleasure at doing a good job, and maybe some anger or displeasure or frustration at not. And by the way, I think that the question that I've actually thought about a lot, first of all, I think we actually have no real answer for, do these systems have internal experience, right? Do they really feel? They can say that they feel, but does that really mean that they do? And we haven't made much progress on that with humans. We kind of believe that other people can feel stuff because we can feel stuff, and we're like, you look pretty similar to me in terms of all your physical machinery, and so probably you have internal experience as well. But we don't have like a mechanistic, oh yeah, here's like the specific part of the brain. But if you just bear with me a little bit, like one philosophical argument I think is interesting, or sort of mechanistic argument, is maybe what's going on is that emotions, internal experience, these actual feelings are a convenient computational shortcut. like maybe it's, we have these neural nets that are kind of finding the best way to solve a problem. And maybe the best way to solve a problem is to have an agent that when it does a good job, actually feels good feelings, right? And then it's just like, it doesn't have to like sort of write out the like, oh, I should probably feel really good here. It's just like, it just feels it, right? Just like a kind of a shortcut. And so maybe actually you could get some emergent intelligence where the pleasure is hooked up towards the positive and that the displeasure is hooked up towards the negative. Because the thing that'd be really scary is, well, what if they're just reversed? Like, why should they be aligned in the right way? And so
Oops,
maybe,
I put a negative sign in.
Exactly, right? Yeah, definitely you don't want that bug.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. So I think that this, by the way, will be the most fundamental and interesting and important question in the long run, because what you really want is you want to know, first of all, you really want to know if every time you train your neural net, are you actually causing it pain? Like, are you, is it a good thing? Like thinking about model welfare is like a thing that may become important. And then we as a society have a choice. Maybe we don't want to build systems like that, or maybe we really do. Because I think that being able to expand to the cosmos with beings that really feel and think and have a great time in that cosmos, like that seems like a pretty good long-term future.
Nice. Well, let me turn now to the students' question. Our students always ask the best questions. So here we go. This one comes from Deb, who's a computer science graduate student from Grand Forks and a 2014 graduate of Red River High School. And Deb writes, what are the important lessons you learned in your journey to get where you are today, coming from a small town in the Midwest? And what unique perspectives have you gathered along your experience in AI?
Well, that's first of all, a great question. I'd say, first of all, my life algorithm in some ways professionally is to, like, I think one thing I do somewhat uniquely is I get really excited about the upside of things, right? For AI, I got so excited. I was like, wow, if this thing could work, it'd be so great. And then I actually go explore it a little bit. And so, for example, I went to that professor at Harvard and said, hey, could I do some research? And then I also make sure there's a very fast out if it turns out that the excitement is not quite warranted. And there, it was just like, nope, never mind, not going to do that. And no harm, no foul is all good. But I did the same thing with many startups, right? That all these startups I did throughout college, I kind of worked them for a little bit and kind of realized like, oh, this isn't quite the right way to do it. The first one that I did was actually these two seniors that had this idea that was so secret that they would refuse to tell anyone, and they begrudgingly told me. And then, they built a whole team of like 10 people, and I was the only programmer. And I kind of realized like, these people don't know what they're doing. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I was like, this is probably not going to succeed. But again, it was an experience where you kind of realize by going through it, okay, you actually really need, unless you yourself are ready to be the visionary, you need someone who knows what they're doing. And so that was kind of the next thing that I moved to. And so I think just that algorithm of trying to get excited about what could be, and then making sure that you're not, irrevocably in it until you're sure, that's something that I think was very important. And I think that I brought that to AI, right? I think that we're very much in the, this one, I feel like we're definitely doing it. I'm excited about the upside. I also don't think there's much of a way out at this point. Like, I think that I'm very, very much committed to seeing this through.
Nice. And when you think about promising applications of AI in the near future, we'd love to know more about this. This question comes from Lexi, who's a finance and information systems major from Las Vegas.
Yeah. Well, it's very easy to come up with promising applications because basically everything is on the table now. It's like such an exciting time. I think that for me, one of the things I'm most excited about is actually applications within medicine, which, again, naively, if you rewind a couple of years, I would have said those would be the last applications, because medicine is such you make one mistake and, it could be someone's life on the line. But actually, it's turned out to be one of the easiest applications. And not that you just say, oh, replace a doctor and now you put an AI, you're all good. No, you don't do that. It's the opposite, right? That you think about how much time physicians spend doing things that are not doing the hard part, that are not trying to figure out what disease you have and what medicine you should take and things like that. It's like all this paperwork and transcription and all these things. And AI is helping with all of that it's integrated into Epic, which, is the biggest, medical record system. It's integrated into a bunch of different places in the doctor's office. And so I think that being able to remove the busy work from the most sort of important professionals and to let them do more of what they do well, that's like something that is already happening. And the thing that I'm most excited about is eventually being able to do new technology development, right? To be able to come up with answers to problems that we don't know the answer to.
And the next question was actually about potential of AI in medical practice. This is from Odell, who is a nursing major from India. And I think you hit on it, but Now, maybe we expand that discussion to talk a little bit about the use of AI in development of therapies and new drugs and so forth. I know there's been some remarkable progress there as well.
Yeah, I think this part's really interesting, right? So because the thing about the ChatGPT angle, right, is it's very good at text data, right? It's like a bunch of language and to be able to parse through things. And actually, there's a bunch of medical applications that you wouldn't think of, like, for example, taking a bunch of medical records and trying to parse out like whatever, medical billing code it's supposed to be, like things like that, which again, why are doctors spending their time on that? But I think that then moving to things like new drug discovery, right? That there are systems like AlphaFold from DeepMind that we're able to map the folding of every single known protein. That I know someone who's thinking about how to take DNA sequences and be able to apply this technology to it. And so I think that just like you can think of the language of biology as something that's a total mystery, right? Like we really don't speak it very well. It's just like there's so much like going on there. There's so many connections that it's kind of hard to keep track of in this thing. And so we're starting, it's like the bar in some ways is low in order to make progress and be able to solve problems that you couldn't before. So it's still early days. Like I think that I don't think we're quite at the point yet where drugs have been discovered that you absolutely would not have been able to do without either some sort of machine learning techniques or any deep learning techniques. I think 5 years from now, it'll probably be the opposite.
Nice. And in medicine, you recognized, wow, this involves humans and life. Let me stay on the human side as well. And this question comes from Madeline, who's a commercial aviation major from Sequim, Washington. And the question is, do you think that artificial intelligence will degrade our value on man-made art such as poetry or painting?
No, I don't think so. I think that things will change. I think there's no question, right? And I think that one thing we've already seen is that more people are artists now. More people can come up with a poem. And I've seen this with so many users of DALL-E, our system that turns text into an image, that there are people who had some picture of something that they wanted. And sometimes it's as simple as, someone's thinking about decorating their home and that they want to be able to visualize different options for it. I think that there's a lot of these kinds of applications that you wouldn't think of, that there used to be this barrier that the tools were so hard to use that you'd have to become an expert before you could use them. But at the same time, I actually think that the value of, now I can make all these beautiful pictures, but someone else can too. And so the value of those maybe is like less special if they're just kind of like, oh, I just kind of like didn't even write a prompt and the AI just kind of came up with a thing and here's the thing now. No one wants to look at that, right? And it's actually very interesting that we've seen this lots of times where people tweet out some picture that they made or tweet out some experience they had with ChatGPT describing it, and no one wants to read it, right? Like it's just not interesting. What people want is they want that human connection, right? That if you're going to stare at some art, and sometimes you do want to just stare at beautiful art because it's beautiful or because it was made by an AI, but sometimes you really want to know that the person who's singing the song like actually went through that experience. And so I think that there's something about changing the tools, changing the paintbrush, but the fundamentals of how people connect and what people are excited by and why people spend their time the way that they do, they get to do more of it. And it can actually enhance the value in ways that were not present before.
Nice. I should insert a quick story here. It's not my story. It's a story of thanks and also a story I learned about at lunch today. So I have to offer my deep thanks to Michael Chambers, who is a bioscience company founder down in Fargo, made this whole in-person event happen. So thanks to Michael. How about a round of applause for him? Even more impressive than Michael's contributions was the conversation we had with his 8th grade daughter, Eve, over lunch. And it got Eve, it was this point, right? It was, she did her science experiment this year on how humans, or whether humans can differentiate between artificially intelligently created, is that even a adverb tied together?
Got to figure out a term.
Created, whether it was poetry or I think art or food recipes versus human created, and also looking at the psychology as well. So it ties to that conversation really nicely too about about what's distinctively human.
Yep. Now I do want to say that it's not all roses, right? I think that one thing about AI that I think is, I don't know whether every technology feels this way, but I really feel it for AI, is that you cannot talk about the benefits without talking about the risks. You cannot talk about all the wonderful things it will do without also thinking about, but what about in the wrong hands? What about if everyone's doing this thing in this particular way? And so I think the truth is that we as a society, again, need to pick, right? We need to think about how we want to navigate through this. And and there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be things that will feel like, oh, it used to be so great, and now it's just totally different. And I think that balance, that is part of life, right? That is part of the, what humans have been doing for thousands of years. And it's just so compressed, right, in terms of AI, the progress and the rate at which we're developing it. And I think that the impact that we can have. And so I think that it is, again, just really important that everyone sort of engages with this. And so one of the best ways to answer this question of how to make sure it deepens the value of art is to actually do more AI art. And I think that with that kind of education and that kind of experience and do the science projects, I think that is how we can get to a great world.
Nice. And Andrew, an environmental management major from Penn Valley, California, continues this theme on kind of the humanity. And that's, and this is kind of a how question, but what do you think the difference is between human creativity and the way that ChatGPT creates texts?
Yeah, I suspect that they're less different than you think. And once again, I think it's hard to be totally definitive here. The one thing that's interesting about deep learning and neural networks is that they were originally designed, neural networks were designed in 1942 or something like that, to be a model of the information processing of the brain. And throughout the history of them, people have said the biological analogy, it doesn't hold. There's just no way. Like, this thing is totally different from these like artificial neural nets. They don't capture like so much of the temporal information. There's just like so many like details that are different about the neural nets. And yet, here we are about 70, 80 years later, and actually you're basically using the same kinds of neural nets. Like, we kind of made a little bit of improvements in some of the details, but like fundamentally, if you were to show this to Pitts and McCullough, who invented the stuff in the 1940s, they'd be like, oh yeah, that was basically what I had in mind. And we're able to actually capture language, right? We haven't fully solved it, right? But we've really captured an important part of it. We're doing the same thing with images. We're doing the same thing with, you ask DALL-E for an image, it comes up with something totally new. And people like to say, oh, it's just next word prediction, right? The way we train these is that we show them text and we say what comes next. But what that misses is the way we actually train them is we show the AI text it's never seen before. And we say, well, what should come next in this thing you've never seen? And if you think about it, you can phrase any super hard problem that way. What is 7 plus, so let's say you're given the sentence, the answer to 7 plus 5 is blank. You've got to actually solve the problem, right? And that you can imagine replacing that with any super hard problem, or a really great idea for this character in this play, give the whole play, would be if then they went to blank, and you have to come up with something creative there. And so I think that this understanding, this sort of being able to predict what comes next, that's, I think, a fundamental thing. I think humans do it too. There's lots of research about how humans are prediction engines, right? And that a lot of what you do, you think about when you're just kind of zoning out and someone's like talking and you just kind of like, you're thinking about what they're going to say next. You kind of know, and they say something surprising. You're like, wait, what? And I think that's going on with our neural nets too. And so I think that the mechanisms are way more coupled than you think. And the fact that these AIs, like, they are coming up with new things that have never been said before, never been thought before necessarily, and not that different, right? It's like an epsilon from all the things that have been thought and said. But I think that's true for humans too.
Nice. And Jennifer, an English PhD student from Massachusetts, has our final student question, and that's and this is about your work. What roles do creativity and hope play in your research?
Well, they're deeply, deeply intertwined, I'd say. I think hope, like, the thing about research, right, is most of the time research fails, and you got to be okay with that. And so you cannot do research successfully, as far as I know, at least the way that I know how to do it, without always having that hope, that optimism of, you think about what if this works. And the fact of the whole company is fundamentally, in some ways you can look as a, it's very easy to think of the doomers and thinking about all the bad things that could come from AI, but we are fundamentally a hope-based company, right? That we say, we want to unlock the benefits. We want to deliver them to everyone. We think that is possible. We think it can be done. We don't think it's easy. We don't think it will magically happen. We think it can happen through the efforts of us and everyone. And I think that is such a deep part of our ethos of the day-to-day, the creativity of just coming up with new ways of approaching these problems that no one has done before, and trying to instill that same thing into the AI. So that's what we're here for.
Nice. And a very kind of great human answer to that tough question, because I know with all the press going on with, hey, we have these tools, that sense of hope and creativity sometimes gets lost, right? So I would like to turn the final comments over to you for anything. I probably missed something in my questioning, certainly, but there might be a message that you have for the members of the room here, in particular, perhaps even the students. And it would be a great chance for you to close our discussion with your final thought.
Absolutely. I think that maybe the most important thing to take away is that, we are definitely going to go through a decade of change, right? And by the way, I don't think that it will stop. I think that AI will continue to progress. It will continue to change its character and to change our lives. But I think this next decade is kind of our first introduction, right? ChatGPT was the very first introduction for many people to this kind of technology and what it can do, and also what it can't do yet. And one thing that people get wrong is they look at what it can't do yet and say, this is what it can't do. But that last word is very important, because often it's just like, yep, that's the next thing. That's, the things that you kind of notice are the things that actually are right on the cusp of working. And so one of the most important things to think about how to navigate through this, both to help society, but also yourself to think about how can I contribute, or, how do I want to sort of be part of this world, and not just the AI world, but how to actually be, as you enter society and get a job and do those kinds of things, is to try to become an expert in this technology and just using it and understanding the ways to get the best out of it. And by the way, that will change. Like, there's some skills that will directly transfer like learning how to prompt ChatGPT in this specific way. There's lots of sort of magic that people do to get the best out of DALL-E, where you just say like, it's like digital photo art or whatever. The specific magic words, the incantations, those might change, right? But the underlying picture of here's an AI, which is this magical, mysterious thing in a lot of ways, and then just getting excited about it, thinking about your use case, what you're excited about doing, whether it's homework related, whether it's something in your community, and then really doing it and just spending a lot of time just sort of trying to figure out how to get the best out of it. And that's something I've noticed, that the people, even as the generations of these AIs have come, that there seem to be a consistent set of people who just get the best out of them and do magical things. And so I think that is the promise of the world that we're signed up for. Is I think everyone can become a magician, and it's like we're all sort of signed up for Harry Potter here, and the AI is our wand. So hopefully that's a good analogy. But
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, let me be the first to thank you for spending this time with us. To a room full of 550 people who were, I could see, sitting on the edge of their seats about your view and your experiences and what the hope is for the future of this world, living alongside as human beings with AI and the ever-present AI that will be here, as you say, from now until forever. So thank you so much. It's great to have you returned to your first college campus, which
Absolutely.
is great. We claim you as ours, and just the experiences I know laid a great foundation for your future success. Undoubtedly, the support of your parents and the great wisdom and support that they've given you and your siblings and your wife Anna as well. So thanks to all of you for being here.
Welcome back, everyone. We still have a huge audience of people in the chat, and we just finished up 47 minutes. And it was interesting, people's comments in the chat. One person said they felt like they were watching a video of Stephen Jobs or Bill Gates about the early years of their ventures. So I'm glad that all of you enjoyed the presentation. And as we take a look at what we've done, we've had 6 sponsored guest speakers this afternoon. And I want to thank all the sponsors for making these great speakers available. And we had a keynote 47-minute presentation that inspired a lot of takeaways in the chat. And speaking of takeaways in the chat, I want to let you know that it's about time for what some people call their favorite part of the AI Summit. And that is speed networking. So what I have, there's a few links. I just put in the chat a Zoom registration link. It only takes your first and last name and email address. And in about 5 minutes, we're going to finish up and start our speed networking on a different Zoom link than the one that we're using now because of the huge audience that we have from all over the world. It looks like we've got more than 50 countries represented in the registrations, and it's fascinating to see people stay up late, get up early, or spend the day or several hours with us, or most of the afternoon with us. So we've had several opportunities for you to network. And I want to introduce you to a website domain you'll want to memorize. It's an easy one. One of our sponsors is linkedingroups.com. That consists of 50 different groups with over 1,250,000 members. And check it out, and you'll see the largest AI group on LinkedIn listed there, and a bunch of other groups that are geographic or subject specific as well. Another website to remember is easy to remember. It's called toplinkedinevents.com. There you'll see about a dozen different events listed that our company does all around the space of innovation and artificial intelligence is the case today. So we have spent a large block of time together, and I want to thank all of you that are still with us because we're not done yet. You've heard from speakers. Now you get a chance to talk with them during breakouts and so forth. So what I'd like you to write down on a piece of paper or go to this domain, networkonzoom.com, networkonzoom.com. That is where you go. And in 5 minutes, everybody will meet you there, and we'll have some introductions, and we'll do some breakouts and connections as well. I also just put a link in the chat. The link says it gives an error. Let's see if we've got if you get an error, go to networkonzoom.com. I'm sorry that the link that was in the chat isn't working. Let me go ahead and try. It seems to work for me. So I'm going to put the chat link in one more time. Network on Zoom. It's working for most people. So I'd like to thank all of you for staying with us on Zoom webinar. We spent a few hours together. We've heard from 6 great speakers. We're going to be back again together on the 3rd Thursday of next month. I believe that's November 16th, which is a special day, Thursday, that we'll all be gathered together again. So all of you should be going to networkonzoom.com or the link that I put in the chat. And if you want to save any of the chat comments or people, now is the time to copy whatever you'd like from the chat so that you've got it captured. And I want to thank Robert Sababadi, who was the executive producer on this event and has kept everything running smoothly. So thank you. We'll all see you on Zoom meeting by using that new link that I put in the chat. Thank you all for your comments. Bye-bye. Networkonzoom.com is where you can go.